Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be getting on with back scenes, more wall, maybe some weathering of the track as well. So sit back, enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now what you're seeing in front of you here is the upper wall segment of Creweworks. This is for the what I would call the old station platform or unloading platform type thing. Now I thought it was necessary to make this because it allows me to then crack on with putting ballast on the layout. So this is what they look like. There's a lip behind it, so that lip at the top of this wall goes over the plywood base, and you'll see that in a second. Also the bricks are embossed, so that means that the mortar between the bricks is actually set back behind the brick. Now that's to enable weathering techniques that are used to sort of go, like pigment of the paint to sort of go between the bricks. The flagstones on the top here, I have done a similar thing with embossing them, but as you'll see the print didn't really come out that great with those, but it doesn't matter. What I'll do is I'll just use a pencil and bring detail of those out. So let's crack on, shall we? I know it's been a while since the last video, but life's been happening, so I apologise for that. I'll just bring out the videos as and when I can, yeah, as more work on the layout evolves, I'll be sure to show you as I go. So enjoy this video and let me know what you think. Okay guys, so you saw how I modelled these walls. I'm just going to show you what I've done here. I've got some thinned down and it's actually, I'll tell you now, it's Vallejo Airbrush thinner, okay, with black acrylic paint. And you'll see this, if I add a touch on here, just a little bit, it blots out throughout the paint. Now, what I'm actually going to do is quickly, before that dries off, the paint dries a lot quicker with the thinners. You see I'm just launching this on here. Now that'll just basically get in every single gap of the brick, and that will dull down to this, and it'll probably even go even brighter, to be honest with you. Okay guys, so here we are with our walls. They are nice and dry now. Now the next thing I'm going to do is actually just stick them down. So these will get placed pretty much where they need to be. So I just need to clear some bits and bobs away, and I'm just going to be sticking these down with super glue, but I'm just going to go along. I won't bore you with the details as such. I'm just going to stick these on with super glue. The way I've made them is so the flagstones that are on the top, they actually just slightly overhang this piece, so that's kind of where they're going to go. And then when you've stuck these down, you see you've got an edge. So then between this and the rail, that's what I'm going to be filling with dirt and well, what they're walking along down the platformy piece. So I'm going to start gluing these in, and I'll show you what they're like in a minute when I've sort of got them all sort of stuck in. Okay, so I've put all of these in. So there's one piece, another piece, another piece, and just gone all along like this. For me, it was important to try and get the height at the same all the way along, and also how far they are in and out from the wall. The gap I'm not terribly fussed about because I can fill that at a later date. So yeah, they come down here and they just curve. So I've just glued them to the curve. And this is what we've got. I got to about here, and I didn't want to fit a whole piece in there. It would look wrong. So all I did is literally just snap one in half and glued half of it on. And so I'm going to have a signal box about here somewhere. And what I'll do is I'll put some more ballast down and stuff, and it will sort of flow in and out from different pieces. That'll be that. So really, I think the next thing for me to do here is actually to paint the top of this wall in the grey colour like we did on this wall, on just the top sort of flagstone pieces. It's a very subtle thing here, and you've really got to look to be like, oh, is that grey or is that red? But that's kind of how I wanted it. You can it's a bit more pronounced in the light there, but that's what I'm going to do here. The top's going to be going grey, so I'm going to get on with that. And it's just in the same way I did these, is just hand paint them. But now that they're stuck to the track, some people might find this more difficult, but for me, I can literally get paint on the brush and just go down like this, using this finger as like a guide almost, and just paint them in as I go. And then I think that's it for the wall. We can move on to other stuff. So I've just mixed 1 part black, 1 part white, and then some of that Vallejo acrylic thinner with just some cheap acrylic paints. The thinner's relatively expensive, but it is worth the price because it really does work quite well. Now, the idea behind the Vallejo thinners is that you use it's airbrushing thinners that I showed you earlier. It is obviously used for airbrushing, and I could actually airbrush this on, but for the sake of me getting the airbrush and airbrushing this on and masking it off, it's just not needed. You could definitely airbrush everything if you wanted to, but I just don't see fit that is a worthy use of my time. So here we go. And it doesn't really matter if I go off and go on there either. In fact, I might even paint that grey in a minute, just so that is a grey colour underneath what will be there in a minute. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and we'll be back once I've done it in a minute. Okay, so it's now grey. I've got a bit carried away and did a bit more depth with the colour, but that's it. I'll let that dry off and sort of leave that for the minute. I will revisit the wall and do some weathering and hide these little gaps up, because those gaps bug me big time. And so do the ones on the top, but they will go eventually, because the ballast and the details and weathering will hide them away. And I'll fill the gaps up with probably clay, to be honest. But when we get to that point and it's of interest, shall we say, I'll show you what I do. But that's the base in for there, and the base colours. So on this wall here, we put the wall in. I did the base colours, and I've pretty much done the weathering on it as well. It may change, and there's actually in the real world there's more details. Well, there's actually barbed wire just on some little rails above the top of this wall. Now, I might do that, I might not, but that's just to give you an idea of there's a lot more detail that could go into this wall, for example. So this was just to get it close enough to being photogenic. So I'll carry on, and I think whilst this paint's drying, I think what I'm going to do is just clear up this mess that I've made, and then actually start looking at the back scene. I've tried to do some back scenes in the past, and I've had a nightmare with them. My best mate has just sent me a back scene, bless his cotton socks. It looks really good. Now I'm going to try this. Hopefully it goes on well, and hopefully I don't mess up. Third time's a charm, innit? So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Just the back scenes are just really hard to apply properly, especially when your back scene needs to go on in situ. If this was laid on a table, so I could wallpaper paste it, for example, that'd be great, but it's not. So I'm probably going to use Pritt stick to hold this on in strategic points. And then at that point, I think I need to sort out lighting for this board, because at the minute I've got these little lamps showing everything up. They're not ideal, they're not permanent, and now if I have a designated light source on this board, I don't need to keep messing around with these lights. I can just use the light on the board to light my way through making the board. So backscenes first. I'm gonna have a play with that, I think. Like I say, let's clear this mess up, and I'll show you what I've got. Okay, so I've jumped ahead quite a lot here. I've had many nightmares trying to get backscenes on a layout, and Pritt Stick's actually working. I'm going to have to do something with this join here because it's pretty ghastly, but I'm fairly sure I can actually do something with this. But if you look at this area, it looks fairly good actually. I've got to shave the top down because this is a 15-inch backscene height-wise, by about 5 foot long I think each piece. So I think these are meant for double O gauge. In fact, made by ID Backscenes, this one. I can put it in the description if you guys want to buy one. But again, there's no affiliation there with them. And my mate gave me this anyway. I didn't buy this one. But I'm quite impressed actually. I think this is probably the best type of backscene you can get because it's quite thick card almost. Anyway, so you're seeing what we've got here, and I'm pretty happy with this. This is looking pretty good. That is bugging me big time. But what I need to do is carry this roll on round because this came in 2 pieces. Like I said, I'm just using Pritt Stick. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you what I do. Literally, I'll be quick, but I'll do, in fact I won't show you, I'll just tell you sort of thing. I'm not going right to the corner because I want a little curve there. So what I'm going to do before I glue that is I'll do a dry run because I know that I need to cut some of the bottom of this roll in order for it to go over this lump of the track, and then I can sort of glue it down here. So we'll come back in a minute and I'll glue a piece on here and show you, but for the time being I'm just going to chop the bottom of this roughly the length that I'm going to need. I might even do a chop on the bottom of this, the full length that I need, because it doesn't need to be down here. Stop blabbing on, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, I'm back. What I've done is you can see where I've cut the bottom out a little bit, so it goes over this area, and I've just clipped it to the backboard. Now you'll see it curves. That here is actually the top of the board, so that'll all get trimmed off later, but I'm going to leave the radius there in the corner, and I might even make it more of a radius, just so the light doesn't catch a shadow in the corner. You can see there, you can see like bits like this. I don't like catching shadows, so I'm just going to keep mucking around with this. But what I was trying to say in the first bit there is I'm just doing a strip of Pritt Stick and sticking it on, and then doing a strip of Pritt Stick, sticking it on, but I was unrolling it as I was going when I was doing this bit, and it works a treat. The bottom isn't exactly nailed on properly, and I'm only putting glue in strategic places, just enough to hold it on. This join I'll revisit. But I'm going to carry on doing the Pritt Stick, and we'll be back in a minute. So here's a prime example. The back piece here, I've just put strips on. You have to do this pretty quick, or I feel like you do. And I'm going to put a strip here because I want it to sort of glue before the train goes through that hole, basically. That's the idea. But I want to keep that curve in the corner. So one-handed, unwind it a little bit. And you'll see how it kind of works. And I think Pritt Stick works relatively quite well. How long it will last I don't know, but the beauty with the glue is it's not that wet. So I'll carry on, I'll show you it finished. Okay, so this is that first corner I just showed you. And this is why light's important, because you can, I'll just try and show you all the imperfections with the light. It's all over the place. If I get light everywhere in a good place, it should sort of soften the blow with how badly it's installed. the join is bugging me because it's really obvious. I just want it flawless. This end looks good. I think because the sky's got a lot going on in it, if there was a bump or something, you kind of wouldn't see it. Pretty happy with that. If I'm pretty happy with it all, this Backscene is way better than the likes of other makes that I've come across. It's got a matte finish on the front there, so that really, in my eyes, helps with light. Whereas if it was shiny, it might be a bit hard to take a flash image of it, shall we say. Pretty happy with this. You'll see the bottom there. I've not gone right to the bottom because there's going to be trees and buildings. In fact, the majority of this actually, there'll be a bridge, there'll be trees. There's going to be a lot going on in the background. What I might do here is just try and cleverly hide it in a clever way. Although I'm limited to what I can do because things aren't that high in the background of the crew scene. It's just frustrating that I can't get like a 10-foot roll of what I'm after. So if I can't remedy this, I will literally stick some blue wallpaper over the whole lot and call it a day. Something this colour, wallpaper wise, would be great. And then it's just one piece. There's no joints. So I'm happy with it, but I'll be really happy with it if I can sort that out. And by sorting this out, what I mean is, because I mean, there's going to be buildings going up to about this sort of this height, maybe a bit higher. So then really, all I've got to do here is make sure it's stuck down properly. What I do is you can see where it's peeling away. Just here is the top of the actual backboard. So I've got to cut off about that much all the way around the top. I'll do that with a knife. But yeah, it's just, I think I can sort this. So, and then be clever with the lighting maybe. Okay, so the Backscene's kind of on. I've been cutting the holes in it and gluing them around. What I did, now the join, I've sort of airbrushed it away, if that makes sense, or tried to. I think when it dries off, because you can see it's a little bit ripply, it will sort of brighten up a bit. That's my theory. So I can reiterate or come back to that at a later date. I think it needs brightening up in this area and there and there. But I've got the base colours on. Always base colours, you see. Right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to try and weather this track a little bit. Now, I'm just using acrylic paints in a airbrush. I'll just show you it. This thing. Now, you've seen this previously in previous videos, and this was attached to a battery pack, basically. So it's a cordless USB airbrush. I've got quite a few little mini airbrushes, and that little Chinese thing there is fantastic. The nozzle size is great. It's perfect for what I'm doing. All the other stuff, like the Badger airbrush I've got, it's not as good as that, ironically, even though people swear by them. So what I actually got is there's actually like that air compressor box. Now I got given that by one of my friends, so I can't really tell you much about it other than it runs off the mains and it's like an on-demand air system. It basically is just unlimited air for me. I'm spraying acrylics. Now I'm being careful, I don't really want to breathe them in, but I am spraying them indoors. There seems to be no fumes, but you're still going to be breathing in the vapour of acrylics, so you want to be careful. What I've done, we're going to start with a dollop of black. Now, I have no idea, I've never done this before, but this is what we're going to do, okay? So I've got airbrush thinner by Vallejo, and what I'll do is just squirt a lot of this in there, like that, just like that, and I'm going to grab a pretty gnarly brush, to be honest with you. It's got loads of paint on it, so loads of paint. Ugh. I'm not going to really care about this too much, because it's got sky colour on it, but black is quite a pronounced colour, so bye bye sky colour. Look, so I'm going to mix this, and what I'm looking for is, it's hard to do this with one hand, I want it like that. Okay, and then it can go through the gun, you see. So I'm going to airbrush some of the track, and there's going to be a multitude of colours, I'd imagine, but I'm going to start off with sort of black. I'd be very careful with it because black will go a long way on this layout, and once it's on there it's going to be hard to undo it, so I'm going to be careful here. I'm going to make the sidings really quite dingy and dirty. The main lines, yeah, a little bit here and there, so let's see how we get on, shall we? Okay, excuse the noise, but I'm just going to show you. Black. And then, so I've done all this, and you could do patches. So I'm going to try and do, I better do this bit as well. Right, just turn the compressor off. Right, that's black, obviously, and that's pretty dark and dingy. I quite like that. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to be doing the main line now, and you saw me sort of stop at the main line. I don't know really what to do here. It's dark and dingy. I'm going to be a bit lighter on the gun, I think. So I'll try and fade the dark pieces there into the main line. But if we look at the now painted on picture, it's not black. It's almost sort of brown and dusty. So I'm going to do a light pass with black, sort of in the same sort of areas as this, but not as much. And then what I'll do, I think, is do a bit of brown over that. So it's, you know, and I might come back and do a bit of brown on this as well. It's just really, the more colours you get in there, the more realistic it is, I guess. So I'm going to carry on. I won't show you what I'll do, but that's sort of me just telling you what I have done. But we'll be back in a minute. Okay, right, so I've just showed you these. What I've just done is I've just done this lot of the main line. Ignore that little dot there, but it's what I've done is just done a really thin coat in the middle and either side of the tracks. And what happens when the overspray goes out from the air gun is it just shadows all the ballast. So instead of it being all uniform, it's now sort of, well, more realistic, to be honest with you. You'll see I've actually cleaned some of the tops of the rails, and that's because I've already ran a train on it, but I can't show you that just yet because I need to put link track on. So I'm going to continue here, but there's no magic really. The magic is the airbrush, because if you haven't got one, this would be pretty, not next to impossible, but you'd have to like use powders and things, or dry brush, and it just wouldn't look the same. I'm not saying this is brilliant, but this is way better than just sticking track down in my eyes. I'm yet to do more, but I'm pretty happy with what's coming out here because it's starting to look dark and dingy. I like this. So I'm looking towards, well, I'm quite excited about putting the brown down because I think that's then going to make this match that a lot more. Not too much brown, it's like a dusty brown everywhere kind of thing. So I'll continue, we'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, so I can't really show you before and after, but if you look behind you, don't look at the wet patch, but this is obviously the grey ballast, and you're not really going to see it that much probably in the camera, but I'm looking at it in person and I think, oh, it looks actually alright. Overall, it's quite dark, I would say. But that being said, I'm pretty happy with it. And again, off camera, it looks slightly different. So what I've done is I did these lighter with black on the main lines, but then I've absolutely nailed it with brown, and it's just dimmed down the grey just enough to look somewhat more like this picture. You can see I've been adding paint to the picture, but yeah, I think it's a slightly brownish, off colory type thing. So let's have a look if we can actually compare this. It's going to be hard to do. It ain't far off, so yeah, I'm going to call it at that. I think there's obviously loads you can do to make things correct in a accuracy kind of way, but for the most part I think it's kind of there, or at least let's say this section kind of is. And as I go, I mean, this might be a little bit too dark, so I can brighten that up. But what I'll do is, when I brighten it up, I'll use a brown, because then it's like a dusty sort of thing. So I was itching to put weathering on the track, and I'm sure it looks probably a little bit too dark, to be honest. But, I mean, when I'm looking at the photos, I keep second guessing myself all the way through all of everything I do here. But when you actually look at the photos, it's pretty dingy. Like, it's if anything, this is too bright, I would say. That's almost like black. But then I think in this shot everything is wet, which makes things darker anyway. So I'm just gonna keep continuing on. I really want to get the ballast on here on my station. I'm calling it a station platform because I think it was, or a loading unloading platform, shall we say, at Crew. And the issue I'm having, which is this, by the way, is getting this ballast to be almost like one piece of ballast thick all the way across. Because I know when I add the glue to it, it's just gonna like blob up and do some weird stuff. So what I'm not sure what to do yet. I was thinking, maybe I'll put the glue on and then sort of sprinkle it on, but that'll give like a mountainy finish as well. So I'm and ahhing with what to do here because I ain't got a clue. I'm just literally doing as I go. So another thing with this is, in the photos for Crew, this looks almost like grey, which is fine because I have an airbrush and I can spray it. So as long as I've got the kind of texture kind of correct, I have to excuse my fingers, then it can be sprayed. So let's carry on, shall we? I don't know what's next, but with the back scene, it's all coming together and I love it. I love it. I really need to get on with some superstructure at the back there, because there is, let's think of it like there's a road which basically runs all the way down the back here between sort of houses and things, and then there's somewhat a bridge that goes over the rails, and then that same bridge goes past the back of this loco station that's here, and it continues actually over this way. So I don't know if I can be clever and just sort of make it go over the whole lot and sort of sweep around between the houses. But again, I've got to do some forced perspective stuff with the houses. I've got to cut a hole there. Loads to do. But it's getting there. It is definitely getting there. And I'm so happy that I have a back scene on here now.